Hey guys, Sekiro Goro here. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Wanted to do a quick video talking about Sekiro. It is, I've done a video with the pickup and I've done a video with my first impressions and review. Now today it is May 4th and I've beaten the game. So I just wanted to give my final impressions on the game, what I liked, what I didn't like, and kind of a little bit more of how it compares to Dark Souls for me. So I'm a big Dark Souls fan. I've already said this. I've beaten 1, 2, and 3, and more recently Bloodborne because I had borrowed my friend's PlayStation 4. This plays pretty much like none of those. I would say out of all of them, it was the hardest of all of them. Probably because the gameplay is so different that if you're accustomed to Dark Souls, this is very, very different. It's way more aggressive, much faster. You cannot ask people for help. There is no multiplayer at all. And there's more like verticality. You can go onto buildings and jump around and kind of like whip around and stuff. Excuse me. Where in Dark Souls, it's a little more grounded and much slower. So my impressions on the game haven't changed much since my review. Um, it, I'm torn because I really like the game, but I also feel like they can tone it down a tiny, tiny bit with the difficulty, whether it be, maybe you can get hit a couple more times before you die or something like that. But I did beat it, so I guess that says something. However, some of the bosses I flat out cheesed. Like you can stun lock certain bosses with certain things. You can walk one boss off the ledge of the map and he falls and dies. Sort of like the fire boss from Dark Souls 1. I can't ceaseless discharge. Is that his name? Very similar to that. There's lots of methods online to, wait for an opening, hit a certain way, wait for an opening, hit a certain way. And that's pretty much how I beat the last boss. He has four versions of himself, which is annoying. Actually, three. One of them is sort of someone else. But so you fight the one guy, you take his meter down or put his posture meter up, you kill him, and then there's another version, and another, and it's like, oh my god. Luckily, they don't differ too much, I guess. I mean, you have to do different methods on them, but by the time the final rendition came, I had half health, no healing gourds, but I did have a resurrection. So I was pretty positive I was going to beat it at that point, and I just took my time and picked my shots, so to speak. More like a Dark Souls game at that point than Sekiro. Overall, the game is great. It's very fast. It's very fun. It's equally as frustrating. I do enjoy the deflecting and the parrying, but they really make you play the game the way they want you to play it. You can't run in and say, "Oh, I'm going to do it this way or do it that way." It most of the time doesn't work. You have a certain character with certain abilities and certain methods, and this is the way you have to beat this boss. And there's little variation because you get these prosthetics, so you can throw firecrackers down or fire or use an umbrella, which I think is completely underrated. It was one of my favorite prosthetics in the game. It opens up a big metal umbrella, and if you get hit, it blocks it. And if you have this move called forced projectile, I think, you can hit, and your umbrella opens up, and you can smack people with it. And if you're fighting a ghost, it blocks everything. It blocks all the terror and all the damage. And then when you hit them, you take out a lot of health because it has like a anti-ghost divine confetti aura to it or whatever. Excuse me. I give the game like a 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. It would have been a 9 had they just toned it down a tiny, tiny bit. I felt like, it's one of those games that you really beat your head against a wall over and over and over with a boss until you learn its patterns. And then when you get the patterns down and you look online and you say, okay, when this move happens, jump. When this move happens, dodge. And you have to be very good with patterns. If you are not good with patterns, you will not be able to brute force your way through this game. I don't believe so. Unless you're playing on the PC and you're using a cheat engine and you're slowing down the game, you will not be able to brute force your way through this game. You can only use a certain amount of prosthetics, a certain amount of times, like shuriken. So you can't just sit back and throw things. You have to actually, use what you have, and then that's it. Then you have your sword. That's it. So, as I said, it's very specific as to the way the game is being played. Um, I would say it's my least favorite because I felt like it was the least customization in the Dark Souls series. I felt like there's a lot of customization with the characters, with the weapons, with the armor. In this game, again, that lacks that. You get no new armor, you get no new swords, you get new abilities, and you can upgrade your strength later on in the game. But after it reaches, I want to say it's level 15, it only goes up in small increments because they don't want you to get too strong. So they really, you know, um, what's it called, bottleneck what you can and can't do in this game, and they want you to play it their way. And it was a lot of fun. It's extremely rewarding when you do beat a boss and you learn the patterns. It's not as rewarding if you cheat like I did and jump on top of a roof and let the character walk off and die. But that's kind of few and far between. I can think of, I think, two occasions I was able to do that. The other time you either have to learn the patterns, or now they've patched certain things out, but there was other maneuvers you could do to like kind of cheese bosses a little bit. Most of the bosses are like humanoid or samurai or some kind of ninja, but there is some cool like animal bosses. There's a huge ape. Um, there's this like demon centipede that goes inside certain things and brings dead things back to life. So that was pretty cool. There's a bunch of ghosts and like these like spirits with no heads. So there is some interesting samurai like mythology, and I looked into some videos with different meanings to each of the bad guys and what the things meant. And it actually dates back pretty far from what I've seen. So they did their homework, which was interesting. Um, the game is all about parrying and deflecting, being very aggressive and hitting, faster than Bloodborne, way faster than Dark Souls, um, harder than both. And if you're a patient person and you don't mind playing aggressive and understanding that the game is nothing like Dark Souls, and if you play it like Dark Souls, you will just die. You cannot dodge as much. There's really no iframes, and if there is, they're very quick, and it's not as much of a invincibility frame as Dark Souls. Overall, I really liked it. My buddy Hesh and I would text every day. Where are you? What are you up to? Did you beat this guy? Did you do this? Did you do that? He got the normal ending. I got the best ending because I went through and beat all the mini bosses and made sure I made the right selections and did like the optional stuff. And the story's pretty good. It's definitely more coherent and fleshed out than Dark Souls. Um, the best ending sort of ends on like there may be a sequel, which I'm sure there will be now that the game did so well. But there is some like touching things and little moments. You can give some of the NPCs sake, and you can have a conversation with them to learn more about them. So that was interesting. And the more you die, the more the NPCs get diseased, and then it can um, impact what they say and what they do. And so it was kind of cool because you do die a lot. So overall, I really liked it. I think it was an excellent samurai game, a stealth game that I could get into because I'm not a big stealth fan. I don't like Metal Gear or Tenchu, so I was glad that they kind of dialed the stealth back a little bit in this. It wasn't like you have to stealth things. You can, but you can also just attack things and learn patterns. It's a huge pattern game. I'll say it again. If you don't like patterns, if you can't memorize, then this may not be the game for you. But I enjoyed it. Like I said, probably a 7.5, maybe an 8. Um, yeah, I'm glad it's over with. I had fun, but I'm definitely gonna not revisit this one for a while. It's not like Dark Souls where you're like, oh, I want to go back and do something. There really is no other way to do things. So revisiting it isn't on my top of my list at all. I sort of want to play something just dumbed down at this point. But let me know, guys, what you thought of Sekiro. If you liked it, if you hated it, if you couldn't get into it. I know a lot of the PC players, like my buddy Paul, he's using the cheat engine to slow it down and kind of go at his own pace. And I think that's kind of smart. I just think it could have been eased up a little bit. So thanks, guys, for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.